All right. Welcome to Lessons Learned, our first
Lessons learned number one: how to do a podcast.
how to do a podcast,
Yeah,
where we
or YouTube. I don't know what you call these things. I don't know what you call these crazy things.
it's not a podcast. Well, this is our new show where we're going to try to go through some of the big sales from about 1 to 2 to 3 years ago and actually talk about what happened in the comic industry and comic world and how those comics are doing right now. So the whole point of the show is basically to become better collectors and find out what everyone was talking about, all the rage, and where is it now? Was it worth investing in? Was it, what happened with it? So anything to add, Matt? You are muted.
Yeah, no, I know. Sorry, I was just bringing up the YouTube on our YouTube on the other channel here. So, uh, first, let's let people mingle a little bit. We'll wait till folks join before we get into the thick of it. But for those that are probably watching this on the rewind, what we're going to get into today, as John said, the whole point. We started this article about what 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, and we partnered actually with Very Gary. So Very Gary is the one who's been doing this on his channel um, uh, pretty religiously, but we were doing it about once a month, and now we've been sending him stuff every week, and he's overwhelmed. there's too many. So we decided that what we'll do is switch off every other week. So we'll do one on our channel, probably on Mondays. I think this is a good night to do it. And then he will record his and post them live. I think he usually posts them on Fridays.
I know the retrospective is 1 year, 2 year, and 3 year. Do we get the 3 years, the 2 years, or is it always going to be mixed and matched?
It follows the month. So the first week of the month, we're a 1 year look back. Second week of the month, it's a 2 year look back. Third week of the month, which is 3 year look back.
What happens at the fourth week, though?
4 years.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And then occasionally, when we do have that fifth bonus week, how many times does that happen a year? I think twice, right? We do go back 5 years, which is fun because we're going back to 2019 on some of those, and it's like, what was the world like pre-COVID?
Yeah.
And the only reason why, I mean, in the future we'll do 5 years. The only reason we don't do 5 years, just anyways, is because we only started doing these in our top 10 in 2019. I think February 2019. So there was only so far we could go back overall. And when we use our top 10 and we reflect on, this is just a reminder, our top 10 have never been curated. It's pulling from what was actually moving in the aftermarket, what people were buying up in bulk. And, and because of that, you get a lot of naysayers. Most of the top 10 would be like, oh, why are people buying this? Oh, it's FOMO, or it's this, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And these really do a good job of capturing where the market was at this time frame. And then we get to step back and kind of look at this and assess what we did right, what we did wrong as collectors, as buyers, as speculators, as jumping into FOMO, not jumping into FOMO. Do we make the right decisions on skipping out on books, or did people do good overall? There's a lot of fun lessons here, and I do think it counteracts. There's usually bigger stories built in this stuff. A lot of people look back. We're going back to 2021, August 2021, and this was, just to paint the picture, we were still in COVID lockdown. The world was trying to ease back into life. We were just getting back, trying to get a little bit of semblance of normalcy. Phase 4 of Marvel was in motion 3 years ago, with the Eternals was going to release in just a couple months.
I'm going to background music.
Background music, that's extremely distracting. Whatever you can do. You can do
going back in time. You're setting the stage.
I feel it's a little too sexy for this dialogue.
You just
Okay. I'll roll with it. Hey, let me turn on my narrator voice. Well, let's jump back. Anyway, 3 years ago, we were jumping into the Eternals, and then back on Earth, Riri Williams was announced to be taking over the reins from Tony Stark's Iron Man and being like the MCU's resident iron-suited hero. And she was just announced that she was going to be in Black Panther 2. So basically, at this time with Riri, it's kind of the highlight of this article. At that point, there was nothing holding her back from skyrocketing. Her book skyrocketing higher and higher, or could it? Right. So let's jump into this.
Okay,
Sean, do you want to man the slides?
Sure. Starting at 1?
10.
10. Okay. I almost ruined everything. And we're done.
Yeah, we're gonna go 10 to 1.
So number 1, number 10.
10, yeah.
Okay.
So this is the way Gary does it too. This is Defenders 1, Peach Momoko, the Silver Surfer Black 1 in 50. So 3 years ago, this was the new iteration of the Defenders. It featured a new team consisting of Doctor Strange, Silver Surfer, Red Harpy. Man, remember Red Harpy? Jeez, that was a blink of an eye. Masked Raider and Cloud. It also featured the first cameo appearance of Omnimax and the first appearance of Taya. Is it Taya? Taya. The mother of Galactus. So that's what was driving this book in the 10th spot. Taya's appearance. This book not only contained her appearance, but also this was a key origin also for Galactus. And so it kind of captured a lot of people's attention. The other thing to remember is that this was a hard to find 1 in 50 by the newish hot artist Peach Momoko. Now she started in Marvel Rising. We have her first cover, her first U.S. cover after this slide. You can jump to it for a second, John. It's right after this.
Well, it's kind of cool. I see the peach, the cherry tree blossoms in this.
Well, that's like some Kirby crackle going. But just jump to the next image, which is just Peach's Marvel Rising cover.
Right.
Yeah. So that was her first U.S. cover. And we'll jump back to that. That was 2019. We're in 2021. So Peach Momoko heat was on fire at this point. At this point, these were hitting $340 raw 3 years ago. And it's kind of nuts. And now we flash forward to 3 years. We kind of now can reflect that Taya's storyline was interesting in this, but the character actually stayed behind in the series when the Defenders finished. Like they left her behind at the end of the storyline. And that's kind of where she's been since 2022, I think. And so while this cover is a bit of a bust 3 years later, it's fallen down to $56. 9.8s are going for about $85. There's a couple. I don't think it'll ever get to that height of $340 raw again, but there's some possibility with this trending. Taya's first appearance. I mean, if they're going to do any origin of Galactus, we might see her on screen. It might be for a blip. It might not really matter overall, but you could see an uptick in this cover. There's, Peach does like, this could be a long-term hard to find Peach Momoko book because it is a 1 in 50. There are some things working for it. The other thing to remember is that this was a 1 in 50 and it's still selling for ratio at $56. So, hopefully at the time, those that bought it at their shops, hopefully they got it for $50 or less. And if you did, you're okay.
What also is interesting is that this didn't really have movie or media content around it, right? This was just a pure kind of like comic book.
People were interested in Galactus' backstory. I mean, there was some stretch with Taya of like, maybe she'll show up in the MCU, maybe, so there was some excitement around that. And it was kind of like that, and the Peach buzz overall was driving that ball.
Did you say Peach Fuzz?
It kind of did sound like Peach.
Yeah, we start the Peach Fuzz from now on.
Yeah, I mean now you're not going to hear it, right?
I can't unhear it now.
Cover Price After Dark. Someone said Cover Price After Dark. We could do Cover Price After Dark.
after
I could go really
4.
low, especially since I have a cold. I can actually take it down a few more octaves down, and just really make it smooth.
I could leave the music on the whole time if you want.
I know. If you want me to pivot to that voice, I could do it.
Should we do number 9?
Let's do the number 9. So
Oh.
here we go. We're jumping into Riri stuff. Okay, 3 years ago, Kevin Feige said we're shooting Black Panther, Wakanda Forever right now. And the character Riri Williams, you're going to meet her in Black Panther 2 first. I mean, that was huge. It just set everything on fire. I mean, Riri was a speculative character the day she hit in 2016. If you were around in 2016 buying comics, you know that this was day one hot. And while we knew she was coming to her own series, played by Dominique Thorne, this surprise news that we are going to see her earlier lit just a fire under everything. And Marvel was making that very clear with their multiple printings that this was Riri's first appearance. Was her first appearance was in Invincible Iron Man.
I kind of wish they just did this little featuring for first images.
Well, that was featuring. They did for issue 7. They said the first appearance of Riri Williams. So and I mean we'll go into that those crazy appearances in a bit, but this at the time was a tough to find second print. It just caught on fire, jumped to $200 raw and close to $400 in a 9.8. Now 3 years later, time and market interest have not been kind to Miss Riri Williams. Her appearance in Black Panther was met with really harsh critiques. A lot of people didn't like the suit. They said it was a bad suit design, and it was a little too cartoony for coming off of Iron Man. And that her appearance was it felt forced and poorly developed. Now Dominique was a great actress. It wasn't her. It was just the way she was delivered in this film.
When you try to shoehorn so many characters into like a movie, like they never get enough time to develop. They never get enough time to get to know them. Like it would have been great to see her in her own thing, Well,
this was a send off for Chadwick. That's people wanted to feel his loss, right? And they did. They definitely showed that in that film. And I will say this about his sister. Why am I blanking on her name? Help me.
Sister. Oh, Suri.
Sure. So she was the comedic kid sister, right? Like in the first film, and she was fantastic. But really, was she capable of like running a whole film? I don't know. I think it was that plus, it was. I felt like Riri was a bit of a distraction in that film. It took away from some of that heart, and could have also took away her opportunity. Shuri's growth in that role, but we don't have to get into that. All in all, this Black Panther 2 crippled Riri's aftermarket rise, and it all came just crashing down. And now this book sells for $15 raw, $65 in a 9.8. It's a huge buy.
At one point, $700 in October of 2021. It reached.
Yes, it did almost hit $700 in 2021. Now you're great if you're that buyer. Now remember, like it hit that high, but that was one person who hit that high.
I mean,
that was one sale. So
it just seems so hard because you're kind of like, well, how am I going to time this? Is this going to be a big character? They're really doing a big push. It did get up to 700 at one point, which is insane.
I mean, and that's something if you guys we've done some of our panels we've done in the past is when to sell, when to buy, when to sell. And maybe we'll turn that into an article so you guys can actually peruse it. There is a system. We see definitely a clear pattern on when, especially content related stuff.
Ooh, we got a little battle going on in the comments here.
What's that?
We got let's see. We got Righteous Flipper giving examples about the hype and hype books, and Riri being, for example, a hype character. He mentioned Miles Morales and Lord of Brooklyn.
Hype. We'll just jump into it real quick. So Riri was hype it wasn't quite a speculator book. Marvel was trying to take this character, like Tony Stark, I think, was dead or about to die. I think he was dead at the time when they introduced her. She was supposed to be the one that was going to take on that torch. And yes, speculators did drive up that price, and channels really drove that character in a big way. That's absolutely true. But she was a good character, and having Tony as her AI was a fun dynamic, right? I think there was a lot of missteps with the character. I really don't like where they took her armor ultimately, and I think she became a little more cartoony. But that's something else for another day. But in terms of Miles Morales, no, I don't think he was a hype character. I mean, he was around for a good 8 years before his book took off in a big way, and it really just, I mean, his rise was purely because of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I mean, that film is probably one of the top 5 comic book films of all time, right? Like, I could easily say it's probably even the top 3. It just made people see Miles in a new light that they may have not seen before. He owned that role as Spider-Man. Like, imagine Spider-Man but not crippled by Uncle Ben's death, right? That was like he just got to have fun being Spider-Man because his parents were alive, and it was like, he didn't have this burden holding over, and it was fun to see Spider-Man enjoy being Spider-Man. And didn't have all this weight, didn't have the weight of like Mary Jane and having to protect her. He just was a cool, fun character.
I think once we got around the fact that there could be more Spider-Mans and that story could live on, I think there was a lot of, initially there was just like, no, that's not my Spider-Man, and no one knew. They thought they were replacing Peter Parker completely.
I mean, it was the death of Ultimate Spider-Man was the moment the Ultimate line died. He was what's the new term that everyone's using now for he was the
anchor or something?
The anchor being.
Yes,
but Peter Parker was the anchor being to that Ultimate world, for sure.
Right.
Yeah, but they only brought over evil Reed Richards, the Maker, and then Miles over into our current world. But hey, we're going back to the Ultimate line. Right. Anyways, going back to this. So this book.
Oh, sorry, I went because the next one's the same one basically.
No, you can leave it on this. We'll jump into it in just a second. But on number 9, if you believe in Riri, that second print it can't get any lower right now. It's at $15. So if you believe in that character, and you think that people will return to that second print,
buy it from Riri.
Why not? All right, so now we're on number 8. We're on Invincible number 9. This is the regular print. Back-to-back issues with the same thing. The market at this time was preferring this over number 7, and people were calling this the first full appearance, and they were calling 7 the first cameo. Now, this is really super debatable, because if you look at 7, she appears in multiple panels. They say her name. She has dialogue. You see her suit, just not in it. The difference between that, you see her the same amount of times in this issue, but she's in the suit. That's really the only difference. But then the kicker is, this isn't her Ironheart suit. She doesn't get her Ironheart suit until like the 3rd or 4th issue in her solo series, where she gets an Iron Man suit. And then she gets...
Why can't first appearances be so much easier? Why do they have
her suit, her first appearance as Ironheart is very complicated. So if you need to go to Riri, I'm a big supporter of 7, but that's another day. I mean, Marvel even says straightforward this is the first appearance. So it's like, sometimes you have to just listen to the boss and go with what they say. But this was $300 raw, which is nuts. $775 and a 9.8. Today, $30 raw. $140 and a 9.8, and so this is a point to actually to talk back to what the Righteous Flipper was saying. There are so many copies sitting on eBay, so many copies, and it's because everyone was stockpiling these, ready for this moment, ready for her to get hot. And then the second she did, the market just flooded. And then it's just stayed flooded ever since, which is why those values have tanked, is because no one can move a copy. And when they do, they sell for way, way less than most people would like. And the problem is it's pretty hard to clear those copies. There's so many. It's going to be a huge challenge to get these numbers up. But you will see movement like we did. There was a trailer at D23. I don't think it's gone public yet, other than the leaked version. So she is having her own show. She's coming back. She's going to have some redemption. Hopefully, she's building a new suit. Hopefully, it's better. Hopefully, the hood is cool. That's the thing. We hope that she is redeemed in her own series. Now, the next one was a real doozy.
Well, this one was like coming for a long time. We knew the movie was coming out and everything, and we kept seeing this on the top 10. I think all throughout 2021.
Oh, this was this next one was a recurring. We have the Eternals. Remember, we were a couple months away from the Eternals. Yeah. So in this time, 2021, we just this time 3 years ago, we got a new trailer, and it looked amazing. Everyone was like, this is going to be the film that we are promised, that Kevin Feige promised, to usher the MCU in a new and exciting new era, right? The market was confident, and they were buying up copies of their first appearance in this issue, this Kirby goodness. Raw sales at $140, $22.75 for a CGC 9.8.
Yeesh.
3 years later, the Eternals was met with immense criticism. Fans either hated it or kind of liked it. Like if you talk to anyone who like, they're like, yeah, I kind of liked it, right? That's as much as you get from the Eternals.
What about you, Matt? What did you think about the movie?
So I actually like the characters. I mean, it's a well-made film. I like the characters. I thought the plot was thin. If there was a plot, I hated the villain. Like I thought turning I'm blanking on his name into the villain at the end. Spoilers.
Icarus.
Yeah, Icarus. Yeah. I didn't like the creatures. I can't remember names.
Deviants.
The Deviants. Thank you. I didn't enjoy the Deviants, and the running joke is we've had that Eternal stuck out of the water for freaking 3 years now.
And no one's ever finally,
it's supposed to be finally addressed in Thunderbolts.
I thought someone that's funny. Yeah, it's a giant thing coming out of the earth
for 3 years. It's like, and this was in the past, right?
Not to mention the giant Eternal that you see looking at the planet Earth at one point.
Yeah. Yeah. The one thing that I hoped that this film would be, what I wanted to see was, that moment in the Hawkeye series when a young Kate Bishop is watching Hawkeye slide across from one building to the next and crash through the other building, and then people synced it up with from the first Avengers film. I was hoping to see a lot of the Eternals like in the background of all these key MCU moments.
That would have been cool.
Like them controlling everything. That they were the ones that kind of like steered everything and saved everyone. I was hoping for a lot of like, they were there the whole time and these were really the heroes that was like saving everyone's butts. And then bring them into the current world of like, okay, we actually have to reach out to these other beings for help, like, because there's a bigger threat coming. That's what I want. That's what I was expecting.
That would have been cool. I liked the movie, but I didn't love the movie, and I thought it was because like they were introducing so many new characters, people didn't know who they were, and then like they kept saying, "Oh, and here's what was the knight." Jon Snow, what was it?
Well, they had the Black Knight was teased at the end. They had Blade was teased at the end. We also
throwing stuff.
There was Pip the Troll and Star Fox.
Oh
yeah. I mean, Lords of Brooklyn's not right. So Lords of Brooklyn said Eternals was terrible. All the style and artistry of Kirby to pull away from, and they had the heroes dressed in a salad wrap. You're not wrong. They could have had like some Kirby crackle. It would have looked visually amazing to have some of those Kirby elements in there. And you're right. That was a huge misstep, actually, when you say that out loud. Especially when you go to Disneyland or Grand California, you walk through Marvel Land. There's all this Kirby crackle on the ground, especially by the Guardians ride. It's like they thought of it here. Like, why did they do it? Why didn't they do it in the film?
Yeah.
So today, near mint raws sell for $40, and 9.8s are now at $4.32. Right. So these busts rolled all the way back to 2017 prices. No joke. All the way into 2017.
I remember during the hype, it was climbing and climbing and climbing. It was cool. It was really like, dang, where is it going to stay there? I guess not.
Well, it while this was like, back in the days of, this was back when the rumors of 2017 was when there was just rumors of the Eternals appearing. And that's why I started picking up. It was hitting $400 in 2017, and now it's at $432. So we're a little bit above 2017, but not a ton. The characters, like, here's the thing with the Eternals is, I think in hindsight, when you look back at the past 3 years of Marvel content, it's actually maybe not the worst of the bunch. Like, in hindsight, it was actually one of the better projects, and that doesn't say a lot, but it was one of the things where you can watch it and it's actually a film that makes sense, right? Where some of the stuff was just big departures.
It was, it was cool. It was cool, but
there's elements of it that I do like. That I do that I don't mind rewatching, and I do think if you see them again, I think they can be utilized in a better way. I mean, it's not too late to add Kirby Crackle to some of their stuff, make them cool.
Yeah.
But the key thing to remember is the same thing with Riri. Now it's a little bit different. This book is not rare. This was a book that had a big print run for 1976. 9.8s were actually pretty prevalent, surprisingly. There's actually, I don't know what the census is because I'm not staring at it, but there were a lot of 9.8s in the market at the time. And the second that trailer hit, for those from now until it was like November when it came out, I mean, everyone listed their copies. So even like a week before the film hit, it was like people were panicking and dropping their value, dropping the prices. It hit like $700, I think, by December. It was like $800 or $900. So it dropped by like $1,500 within just a couple months. So it was a pretty rapid decline for this book, and it's just because supply outrageously outweighed demand. Because no one was like, I'm not going to buy this book right now because no one liked the film. I'm out. So that's kind of what happened with this. Now today, 9.8. So if you search for a 9.8, I think there's only like 3 listed right now. And those $400 sales are actually few and far between. Like, it's hard to find one for $400. I think right now the lowest is about $600 or $700. So maybe at a good auction you can get one for $400 to $500. But literally, if they're not going to let the Eternals go. So and I was saying, like, you can buy this book now. And like, worst case scenario, you have a Kirby classic, right? In the 9.8. And that's a good book. This is a good book. This is a great book to have in your collection.
They tied it into the MCU that they're going to be talking about. There's going to be more stuff.
Eternals did have one of the best depictions of super speed. Super speed can be, cue the Flash, it can be a little goofy, sometimes. Doing super speed is very hard to portray, and they did a really good job.
Let's jump to the next.
We'll jump into the next one. But the Eternals is a big one. So this was a fun. Remember, variants were taken off. Variants were like on fire, especially Marvel variants. But Miles Morales, Spider-Man Annual #1. This was Tony Fleece 1 in 25. 3 years ago, this cover was a fun addition because not only was Miles hot, but Tony Fleece himself was hot off of Stray Dog Heat, right? Like, there you go, the Stray Dog Heat. Did that work? I wasn't even intending that one.
Stray Dog
These dogs were in heat. So they had fans all over this cover, and it hit highs of $160 and $275. There wasn't any 9.8s at the time, but it did hit a couple months later at $275 when the first 9.8 hit. Today it's $46 raw, $90 in a 9.8. Now that is a drop, but it's double ratio still right now, and it's a great cover. It's different. It's not your classic Spider-Man pose cover. This is one of those covers that people will be searching out for, for the future. I wouldn't say that it'll be $160 book in the next 5 years. Next 20, maybe, right? It's a fun cover. I like these types of tabloid covers, and they do well in the aftermarket. Yes, thank you, Righteous Flipper. He says, if you appreciate the content produced by Cover Price, you certainly show your support by subscribing and liking their videos. If you
well said. Thank you. You do our job better than we do.
Yeah, I know. We were like, we don't care. You
should say stuff like that more often.
We prove it. We don't care at all.
Thank you for helping us.
Right.
Yeah, this is a cool
cover.
Says
I like it when they do the distress cover.
Yeah, me too.
But CGC has a problem with them. Do you know how many come back as 6.0s, but they're like near mint because a grader just didn't realize that it was a distress cover? This happens all the time. I'm not even joking. Where they just they think it's completely damaged. It's so fun. I love it. But this is perfect timing with all the drama. I just threw this on. It was like, oh, this was a bad choice. But hey, they'll work it out. They'll work it out. We'll get there. But hey, PGX, not PGX, PSA,
CBCS, PSA. Oh yeah, PSA. Halo, EGS, all of them.
All right, so let's jump to number 5. Marvel Superhero Secret Wars #1. So Secret Wars, the whole freaking series, has been trending for one reason or another over the past 3 years, whether it was Spider-Woman or Black Suit Spider-Man or Doom cover. I mean, it's been, they've all been moving. But 3 years ago, rumors of the MCU were trending that there was going to be a Secret Wars in the future. There was just rumors of it. Now we know there is one. But Raws are hitting $60 and $720 in a 9.8. Now, 3 years later, of course, we did get confirmation that there is a Secret Wars film. And many of the keys have been trending. We said that. But as it stands today, the market is confused about what iteration the Secret Wars the MCU is going to tap into. And honestly, my interpretation is not going to be any of them. It's going to be their own blood. And so, with that said, because of that, it helped raw values stay pretty shelf stable. So near mint values are at 56, but 9.8s did fall from 720 to 243. Again, this is a very, very common book. A lot of times people have found them in big bundles. This was a huge event book. So again, a lot of, Mike Zeck goodness. But this is like a classic cover. Like, I wouldn't mind having the 9.8 of this on my wall, like at 243. Might just pull the trigger myself, just because it's like you got every cover I love right on the cover there. Except early Rogue. I was not a fan of the early Rogue look. I like Rogue, laying in front of Apocalypse, and that's all. Just leave it there.
I didn't like Hawkeye's look back then either. I like what they did with him more modern.
No, that's that classic. I love that classic Hawkeye look. It reminds me of playing the old side scroller Avengers game.
Yes, that's true. But look, it's Wolverine, but in like purple.
Yeah.
I mean, right? I mean, now that you see it, you can't unsee it.
But in terms of like
Cyclops' costume, I like Cyclops' costume back then. That was cool.
Well, they had him in that costume for X-Men 97.
Yeah. I dig it.
You got it.
Boom.
Yeah, why are you complaining?
What's that?
All right, number 4. We're gonna go back into Ironheart again.
Boom. Number 3.
No, you skipped one.
Oh, I just went in order. There is no 4.
There's no 4?
Nope.
I didn't put the 4 in?
Nope.
What? What? Here, hold on. Let me see if I can find it. Play some hold music.
Well, all right.
Play it. All right, we'll just go into it. Let's see. I thought I had it right here. Maybe not. Did I delete them all? Here, I'll share my screen. How about this?
About Hawkeye, I guess it's nostalgic, but when Hawkeye
Here,
looked like that.
I'm gonna share my screen. There we
All right.
go. Okay. And sharing. Is it sharing?
Yeah, I'm sorry. It is. Let me turn this off. There you go.
There you go. All right. So this is Ironheart number 9. It was in the number 4 spot here. Now, as noted by Feige 3 years ago, Riri was going to show up in Black Panther 2, and due to that, this first meeting between Shuri and Riri took off in a huge way, hitting $110 raw. 3 years later, their first meeting has come and gone in the film, and because no one really cared for the film or their friendship, it was kind of no one appreciated. There was no fans of that pairing, but who knows? Maybe they'll work on it in the future. But it now fell to $30 raw, 57 and a 9.8. It's a nice book to pick up if you're a fan of both those characters. If you do think that they'll be good, good buddy roles in the future, like I said, hopefully they'll get another chance at it on screen in the future. And honestly, I think $30 right now is still a good value for this. I mean, it's not 110, but it's not $5. So,
I like your math.
It's higher than it would have been without them on screen together. How about that? If they weren't on screen, it would be a $5 book, but instead it's a $30 book.
Wasn't there a cover with? Wasn't there a cover with Riri, like a variant with Riri and like having coffee with somebody?
Yeah, that was with
like an owner.
It was the owner of the coffee shop.
Yeah.
So it was her shop that did this variant, and it was like her sitting down with Riri having coffee.
I want to be in a comic book. We should do one.
Just put yourself in one. You could do your own exclusive.
No, buy it.
Or you could do a rap battle with Spider-Man.
Yeah, it's just me. Like, who's that guy? Why is poorly rapping on stage with Spider-Man?
All right, here we go. Invincible. Sorry, cold's hitting me. Invincible Iron Man number 1. So this is a funny book. Like, there was more Riri stuff. It was amazing how many people waited for the market height to buy a copy of this first cover, featuring Riri and her quote temporary Ironheart armor, which didn't happen until issue 3. She didn't get this armor until issue 3. So you only see this costume on cover. So, but it's not in the pages, so it makes everything super confusing. But then she gets rid of this armor not too far in the distant future. So it's kind of like, at the time, this was a $25 raw book and $260 and 9.8. 3 years later, the market's moved on from this book. It's $7 raw, 34 to 9.8. Again, there's a ton of these, a ton. And it's now been revealed that it's not a major key. Unless she reverts back to this suit, then I think it could take off again. I like the suit much better than her Ironheart suit. So I hope that she does return to it, but likelihood is low.
Wah, wah.
Yeah.
But this one had a digital edition.
What's that? Had what?
Underneath the number 1, it says digital edition.
Oh well, yeah. Marvel did those for most of the stuff, and they stopped doing it because they're like, no one wants to pay $1 for extra for these. It is interesting that they said Riri Williams is Ironheart, which they didn't call her Ironheart. I think it was like years later after this. Like this was the only time they called her Ironheart, like on the cover, and then the characters didn't call her that until. I think Tony Stark calls her that. The AI Tony Stark calls her Ironheart later in the series. Or actually, it may have been the beginning of the next series. It was much later. I can't remember exactly, but it makes things super, super confusing. All right, next book.
Agreed. All right. I just like seeing that stuff because 2016. It's just little things that they used to do on the covers kind of really date to the time period, and it's kind of fun to be like, oh yeah, no, they don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
All right. Number 2.
Passive aggressive, the aggressive version from Bad Idea 2021. Okay, so 3 years ago, Bad Idea was hitting our top 10 like almost every time they put out a new book. And because they were marketing geniuses and they did a very good job of getting their books to trend. Between their stickers and it was very hard to find. These were very hard to find books. Because stores had to commit to them in a pretty big way to get these stickers and these badges or pins, whatever they were. So everyone had to turn to online sales because they wanted a copy, because they're so hard to find in stores. This version, the aggressive version, so there's 2 different storylines. It's not a difference in cover, just the guts, which is a nightmare for for sales on the back end for us.
What's harder also, this reminds me of stupid, but like the flip covers. Remember that when we first started, there was like I forget which X-Men or something, and it was like one. If you turn it, it's the same comic book, but they have 2 covers, one in front, one on back. People kept saying, "You got the wrong cover." We'd flip it. They go, "No, you got the wrong cover." We flip it.
Right. Yeah, we're gonna add more photos to every book so you can see both covers in those cases. But there's this aggressive version was selling for $50 raw. At the time there were no 9.8s because they weren't graded yet. But 3 years later, these are $5. No recent 9.8 sales, although there was one in 2021 for $35. It was much later after the heat had died off. It's unclear whether these releases were intended as self-contained stories or if they planned on some of these being an ongoing series. That was never clear to me of what the overall plan with these books were. Were they supposed to live on their own? Because a lot of them were actually very interesting. I liked a lot of the reads. It just made you go like, okay, well, what's next? Because there's no follow-up on some of these, most of these Bad Idea books have died. And it's unfortunate because, like I said, there's some great covers, there's some great storylines. I just don't, the market just doesn't know what they're doing with them. There's no follow-up. So when that happens, when you have no follow-up, when you're not driving these things forward, value just plummets. It just does. And the fact that no one could get them in the first place means there's no a lot of people didn't have affinity for it. Like they didn't get to read it to know that they liked it. Right. So that didn't do good. That didn't help the long term for this stuff. But some of I didn't read this one because I couldn't find this one, but there were a lot that I liked, like the puppet zombie one. I really enjoyed that book. I can't even remember the name of it, but I really enjoyed that one.
What's happening in this the cover art here? I don't even know what this is happening.
I honestly don't know either. I couldn't tell you if it's a gas mask. It kind of looks like AI. Like if this is before AI.
A hammer turned into a person's face or something.
I didn't read it, so I couldn't even tell you.
All right.
Yeah. Couldn't even tell you.
Fascinating stuff. All right, should we do number 1?
Yeah, let's go to number 1. And it's not Riri.
It's not Riri.
3 years ago, there was an event that overshadowed all of the content, and it was because they made Tim Drake bisexual.
Yeah, right.
And
that was 2021. Yeah,
it was 2021. So Tim Drake was exploring his sexuality in this issue, and which would continue. The story would continue into Urban Legends number 10. So like people had to wait 4 issues for the next part. So in this issue, it was revealed that Tim was bisexual, and it stirred so much debate and conversations across comic shop. This is at the same time they revealed that John Kent, aka Superman, aka Superboy, was also he was gay. He wasn't bisexual, but I can't remember actually what his
You had the best story idea for that way back when. I remember we were talking about that, and you were saying, let me turn off the thing here for a sec. You were saying that it would be awesome if Jonathan Kent had a relationship with like the Lex Luthor character or whatever, like that other person, and then then they become enemies. They hate each other because they had that like relationship at one point. I was like, oh, that's pretty good. That's a good
That
story.
would be, yeah. That was a good idea. Can you imagine, like, your enemy is because you used to get with them, like, it'd be like, remember we shared that night? You're like, ooh.
The worst. There's love. There's hate. There's all that stuff there. That would have been a cool story, at least,
Maybe. But they also wanted to, like, there was a character that they wanted to normalize it, right? Which is fine. A lot of people just had a hard time with taking these characters and turning them, making them bisexual or giving them any designation. Especially Tim Drake was the hardest one because it was like Tim Drake's been around for a very long time.
That's the thing, right? Like I don't think anyone has problems with any of that. It's like, it's cool, it's a good story, but like, to make a character that has history all of a sudden change something that's core to their identity, it's kind of like, it's weird to some extent, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like, it'd be like, I don't know, your 50-year-old brother would be like, oh, I'm bisexual. I'd be like, well, I've known you my whole life. How did I not see a single sign?
Kind of, yeah.
And maybe you're not looking or don't want to see, I'm sure it was actually a very sweet story if you read it. I think it was managed story-wise well. But like 3 years ago, this trend was pushing this to $45. And there were a ton of copies. I think this was, we hit almost 200 sale aftermarket. This book was moving. Like the controversy. Aftermarket loves controversy more than it loves content.
That's a good T-shirt. Right
no, totally. And they're always never buy into controversy ever because they always die down.
Yeah.
And that's what happened 3 years ago. This topic doesn't, like, I don't know if it's come up. I don't know if it's still there. I don't know if the storyline is still there. I don't know if he's bisexual still, if it's unknown on our end if this is still an ongoing narrative, or if it's only something like if they're just purposely not harping on it and they're just going to be like, it'll just come up when those opportunities come up, like if there's a love interest that comes in. I don't know.
Do you have time for a love interest when you're fighting crime and you're the
that's the thing. Batman doesn't have time. Like, his marriage didn't work out to Catwoman, and damn it, they tried.
They sure did. They did. I thought it was going to work. I thought they were a good couple ish.
But yeah, a lot of people said they didn't see the big deal, but maybe it's because my first Robin was Burt Ward. Oh, well, see, mine, our first Robin was
Burt Ward.
Tim Drake.
Yeah, Tim Drake for sure.
Tim Drake was our first Robin for sure.
Yeah, then he became Nightwing. Then he had his own thing going on.
Well, no, he never became White. He was always Robin, and then was Robin. He was always Robin. And then I don't know. He took on a different role. I forget his roles in the New 52 era, which is when he took on a new name, which was I can't remember of it. I can't remember.
Oh, my bad. I'm sitting there thinking.
You're thinking of Dick Grayson.
Yeah. That's my Robin.
Really, Nightwing? Yeah. See, I've always known him as Nightwing.
That's funny. I remember there was this great comic where Batman's talking about Dick Grayson, and as Robin, he's like better because he was so athletic and so acrobatic, throughout his youth. He goes, he's more than me. Like he's gifted physically beyond what I'm capable of. Batman said about him, and then he said about
that's what a lot of the ladies in the
the comic of his butt became a meme, right? And then, but Tim, Batman always said that he's a better detective than Batman. Like he's smarter, he's more methodical and like careful. I always thought that was
cool. So now this book is selling for $10 just because the controversy has died. It's a bit of a bust. Well, it is a bust 3 years later. 9.8s are selling for $80, which I think is actually pretty good for a $10 value. It means people are buying it in the 9.8. We'll have to see if it progresses. I literally don't know where it stands. If they develop good storylines around it, hey, we're here for it. Representation. I'm good with representation. I know a lot of people have a hard time, and for the reasons we mentioned, it's hard to accept a big change, especially when it feels out of the blue.
That's I think I have no problem with it, obviously, but like when it's out of the blue and it seems forced, I'm like, come on, just you don't have to like shoehorn it in. Create a new character, do something cool, like.
Well, that's what everyone was saying. Those were all the arguments, and this was the back and forth that everyone had.
Yeah.
And then,
it could be Tim just never came out of the closet because he wasn't sure how Batman felt about it. I don't know. And then that's why he came out, when he felt ready, and that's fine.
And people said like, hey, he's not gay, he's bi. So, he could end up with a woman, and that's just as fine too. It's whatever Tim feels like is good for is.
He's a detective. He's going to figure it out.
That's right. Right. First, he needs to discover the person who he is inside. Right?
First, find out who this is. Then you turn it around.
And then he's going to help Batman deal with all his issues. Jesus.
Oh my God! Could you imagine? I mean,
what a nightmare.
I think we just wrote another comic. That's good. So that's the show of lessons learned. I hope you guys kind of liked it. This format, we're still obviously working on it and figuring it out.
So I'll do a quick recap. So yes, this was probably honestly one of our most brutal our brutal retrospectives that we've done. It was really, really tough. I mean, aftermarket prices were going crazy in 2021. Content was a huge driver. I mean, content really died over the last 3 years because there wasn't any content. A lot of iffy content. Black Panther 2 was was met with disappointment. Eternal started a rocky path. We should note that the rocky path that the Eternal started has yet to be paved, despite Deadpool and Wolverine's success. Deadpool and Wolverine did nothing to set the table, in my opinion, did nothing to set the table for what's to come. With the new with the No King storyline.
Yeah, I asked Matt. Matt saw it before me, and I was like, "Okay, real quick, does it like reset everything and no spoilers or anything?" But Matt was like, "It's a good movie to watch. No, nothing's changed in the world."
It's a love letter to all the Fox films and so many comic book inside jokes.
It's fun.
Yeah, it's fun, but it does nothing to move that narrative forward. Some edits are missing on the cup, like the 1977 German printing of the. What's that? Some comics. Yeah.
I'll screenshot that, Mr.
Yeah, just send us a message, Chicago. We're gonna get people are like, "Hey, can you add this book for me?"
Well, I did see.
Damn, Chicago.
We're on a roll. I saw something about missing items in the beginning. We are trying to revamp a crowd sourcing approach to our missing items. It takes a little bit of effort. It's tricky. We do have 6 content managers working on missing items and trying to go through them every single day. It's funny. We have over 750,000 comics on our database. We're adding about 2,500 to 3,000 new comics and missing items every single month. So we're adding them as fast as we can. But there's just a lot of comics out there. But
I want to go into. We were talking with that team. We were looking into how many we've done altogether. We have processed 42,701 missing items.
Yeah, but I get it. There's nothing more frustrating than having a pack of stuff. Like you're trying to enter your collection and you can't get in there. We got some things coming up. It'll probably be by Q1 of next year, to be honest, by the time we get to it, because we have some big updates happening this year, but we're trying to wrap up. But we're going to make that a priority because, we know it sucks when you're waiting.
Yeah. And Igor, we're like, we got people in 2022. So no, we definitely feel this thing. How it kind of works is we ask our team to kind of focus on the ones that have multiple entries to kind of hey, if 30 people asked for this book, let's knock that book out. Then let's just say let's say all the various Power Hour books. We get a lot of requests for the Power. You guys are weird folks out there. No, just kidding. To
respond to Igor, send me, we apologize. We can get that in front of the team. John at Cover Price, send me
your username and send your username, and obviously you'll send it from the email.
We'll take a look if that's something we can expedite.
We always expedite things to get them up and out. So if anyone needs those expedited, you could also email John.
You're just opening a door of opening a door of missing item requests. Obviously, we're going to work to get that done as fast as we can.
Yeah, we're working on it. We're definitely. Do you add most of the DUPs? We really try. We try to keep up on the DUPs.
We're very good at variants. I got to say, modern variants, our team hunts them down and gets retailer exclusives and all that stuff. We kind of pride ourselves on that. There's nothing cooler when someone uses Cover Price and they're like, oh, yeah, I bet you don't have this. And they look up a variant and it's there. And they're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, DUP requires an entire team. It does. It really does. Power Hour, I'm not kidding. Power Hour, what's our team members' favorite books to do? So DUP, Power Hour, Zenoscope, any of the Zenoscopes, because there's Dynamite books every week. There's a billion variants for Dynamite.
Good thing everybody works from home. It would be pretty bad.
So a lot just to let you know, like a lot of our focus is to always make sure like our team is like on top of all the stuff that's coming out now, and trying to make sure so that we can get ahead of all those requests, and while also chipping away at the missing items. It's kind of like we need to do it all, and we keep hiring people to do these things, and the team gets better and better and faster. But it's one of those things where, sometimes some of this stuff is like hard. It's hard to find photos. It's hard to find release dates, and it's sometimes people add stuff like all that details, and some people won't. And some of them involve adding an entire series, and then you're like, oh, there's all these variants for it. It's like. We call them wormholes. We go into wormholes very easily.
Is it a rabbit hole or a wormhole? A wormhole's a thing.
Wormhole will take you through time, right, and great distance. And a rabbit hole, you just go to a zany land where everyone's high. So, I like to say wormhole because it's more of a workplace appropriate. Like there's nothing appropriate about going down a rabbit hole. It's just It's like that's an acid trip. So we don't do that during working hours. So thank you.
Only after. Right. All right. Well,
so this is our 3 years. We're doing 4 years now. Actually, if you go back to our 2 years, we covered the acetate Ultimate 4 acetate cover. We mentioned that in our Friday show. I would love to. I recommend going back into that. It sells for about $100 raw now. That's a little.
Yeah. Be sure to go to the article on coverprice.com for any of these things, right? You can see, you can read through all this and everything. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Do us a favor and just make sure this gets a little thumbs uppy, and that'll help. And anything else, Matt? So the next one's going to be in a month, right? We do this now monthly. Is that our thing?
No, we're going to do it every other week. So, So next week should be very Gary, unless Gary can't do it, then we'll do one. So that we got to figure out our rhythm here and make sure that he can do it. But we'll be on in 2 weeks with 1 year. 1 year. 1 year later. Yeah, that'll be 1 year later. We'll go back to September 2023.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us on a Monday night show for the Comics After Hours.
Yeah.
And, you guys are troopers, and hope you guys have a great week. And
come tomorrow for the Top 10 show. They do a great job on there. It's fun. This was an interesting week.
6 p.m. Pacific time on this channel. All right, guys. Have a great night. Happy Mondays.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.